Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on Doordarshan, India's national television channel about India's international relations, India's foreign policy, all its dimensions, and also India's involvement in multiple groupings around the world to shape and remake the existing international order. Viewers, in this episode, we are taking up a very pivotal partnership of India, which is with Germany. Germany and India have a strategic partnership for a long time, but there has been a significant upgrade in the relationship, both in the economic as well as in the defense and people to people dimensions. So, we're going to be discussing India Germany relations and also how Europe comes in and how Germany, Europe, and India together make an important group of like-minded countries. And to discuss this important relationship, I have a very special guest joining us via Zoom from Berlin, Dr. Garima Mohan. Dr. Garima Mohan is Senior Fellow at the German Marshall Fund. She's a scholar on Europe-Asia relations and also about Europe's increasing engagement with the Indo-Pacific. Dr. Mohan, welcome to Indian Diplomacy.
Namaskar. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Dr. Mohan, Germany and India go back a long way, but the strategic partnership has now reached a higher level with more engagements at the top with leaders of both sides. The intergovernmental consultations that we have has also been expanding. So, seeing India from your side, where you are in Berlin, how does it look, and why is India becoming more central to the way Germany looks at Asia and the Indo-Pacific in particular?
So, how Germany looks at India, it has gone through a remarkable shift. When we look at the time when Chancellor Merkel was in power, India was always on the sidelines. Germany's Asia policy was simply put only its China policy, and all the other countries, all the other actors were on the sidelines. This started to change towards the end of Chancellor Merkel's tenure, where conversations about China became more rapid, more tense. The debate on China started becoming more sharp in Berlin. This really came to a head with the coronavirus crisis, where the image of China really plummeted, not just among policymakers, but also among domestic publics. That is when decision makers in Berlin started looking at India, started understanding that they need to create new partnerships, diversify away from China, and they started looking at India in a new light. This is really visible in the coalition agreement of the new German government. Even before they came to power, they had a coalition agreement which mentioned two important things. One, the dangers of the dangers of over dependence on China, and two, the need of revitalizing the Germany India partnership. They mentioned that the Germany India partnership had not lived up to its full potential by now, and so the new government will focus on that. And we've seen that focus translating into practice. The German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock was in Delhi in December last year, and now Chancellor Scholz is visiting. It is important to note the MEA announced that this is the first time a German chancellor is coming outside of the intergovernmental consultation mechanism. So the IGCs, for your viewer, this is a mechanism through which Germany and India meet regularly. This is the first time that a chancellor is coming outside of these consultations, in addition to these consultations, which really shows the importance that India has. And in addition to China, I have to point out Ukraine is also a factor. As soon as this war broke out, many countries in Western Europe, including Germany, realized how difficult it was for them to create coalitions and get the support of partners in the Indo-Pacific. And that's when they realized that they really need to invest in these partnerships, particularly India, and increase their engagement with Indian counterparts. So both China and now the Ukraine factor is an issue why India is suddenly important in debates in Western Europe, but also particularly in Germany.
Yes, and Dr. Mohan, on this Ukraine issue, the German Chancellor's security advisor was in India, and he was saying that we see the world with similar lenses. We don't want war, and we don't want conflict and fighting, and we don't believe in these. And we also have this shared approach of multilateralism in our foreign policy. So, in that sense, India in Asia and Germany in Europe do seem to have very many common characteristics, isn't it? And they're similar types of powers, both leaders in their respective regions, but with this preference for multilateralism and for resolving disputes peacefully. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why these two seem to be gelling so well, isn't it?
Indeed, I mean, Germany and India do have a similar approach, support for a multipolar world, support for multilateralism. India and Germany are also working together to ask for Security Council reform, for example, at the UN. So, of course, these are factors that are keeping both on the same page. I have to say, Germany is a bit more reluctant as a leader in its own neighborhood. India is more keen to fill the leading power role. Germany is used to leading from behind or leading from the middle. A lot of other European countries actually have criticized Germany, particularly in their response to Ukraine. But overall, yes, there is a lot of commonality in how we see the world and our foreign policies. And what the security advisor to the chancellor had mentioned at that point, he said that he understands the difficult geopolitical neighborhood that India is in. And I think he was trying to draw parallels with the European challenge with Russia and the Indian challenge with China, saying that there is a lot for the two partners to talk about. And they are in challenging neighborhoods, both of them.
Absolutely. So, much in common, similar types of countries with common destinies that have tied them together. Viewers, the point is that the Germany-India relationship is grown in lots of practical areas of cooperation. And let's look at a few of them. Dr. Garima Mohan already mentioned the intergovernmental consultations. So the 2022 IGC, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was there in Berlin, and he spoke about some key areas that are of high importance for the German foreign policy and where they're cooperating with India. Let's listen in to this practical cooperation agenda and continue the discussion.
आज हम इंडो जर्मनी पार्टनरशिप ऑन ग्रीन एंड सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट लॉन्च कर रहे हैं। भारत ने ग्लासगो में अपने क्लाइमेट एम्बिशन को बढ़ाकर विश्व को यह दर्शाया है कि हमारे लिए ग्रीन एंड सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ एक आर्टिकल ऑफ फेथ है। इस नई पार्टनरशिप के तहत जर्मनी ने 2030 तक 10 बिलियन यूरो की अतिरिक्त विकास सहायता से भारत के ग्रीन ग्रोथ प्लान्स को सपोर्ट करने का निर्णय लिया है। इसके लिए मैं जर्मनी और चांसलर शोर्ज को धन्यवाद देता हूं। हमारे कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री स्ट्रेंथ को देखते हुए हमने एक ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन टास्क फोर्स भी बनाने का निर्णय लिया है। दोनों देशों में ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को बढ़ाने के लिए में यह बहुत उपयोगी रहेगा। भारत और जर्मनी दोनों को ही अन्य देशों में डेवलपमेंट कोऑपरेशन का लंबा अनुभव है। आज हमने अपने अनुभवों को जोड़कर त्रिपक्षीय कोऑपरेशन के जरिए तीसरे देशों में संयुक्त परियोजनाओं पर कार्य करने का भी निर्णय लिया है। हमारे यह सहयोग विकासशील विश्व के लिए पारदर्शी और सस्टेनेबल विकास परियोजनाओं का विकल्प प्रदान करेगा।
So viewers, you saw Prime Minister of India explaining 3 areas in which Germany and India are advancing their strategic cooperation. One is climate change, the second is energy, and the third is joint activities in third countries. And on this there has been progress also in countries of Africa like Malawi, Ghana, Cameroon, and also in Latin America and Peru. Germany and India are actually doing joint projects. So coming back to Dr. Garima Mohan, Dr. Mohan, the thing is, you just heard the Prime Minister of India mention the areas of cooperation, and why has climate change, for example, always been an important public policy interest for the German government. But what about energy and third country cooperation? These are very interesting new ways in which we are doing joint projects, and I think it's worth understanding the reason why Germany and India are partnering in this fashion.
Absolutely. This is a new facet of our cooperation and a very important one at that. Let me start with climate. I think climate has been a central part of German foreign policy, but it is even more so now in this new government with the coalition partners of the Green Party. The German foreign minister comes from the Green Party, and they have very clear ambitions when it comes to dealing with climate change with particular partners. India also has given a lot of importance to climate, not just in our national policy, but also in multilateral negotiations. In talks about climate change, India wants to take a leading role. So, this climate cooperation is crucial for the India German partnership. In addition to that, Germany is also home to a lot of companies working with advanced technologies, particularly when it comes to meeting renewable energy targets. India has very ambitious renewable energy targets, and here German expertise, German businesses are quite important partners for India. So this is also a part of the partnership that has become important. And then working in third countries, that to me is the most interesting part of this cooperation so far, which is not just working bilaterally with each other, but actually taking our respective expertise, pooling it and taking it to third countries. Now, this is important because so far it's only been countries like China through projects like the Belt and Road. They've really been making inroads in Africa and Latin America, where there's a lot of demand for new energies, for new infrastructure. And I'm really glad to see that India and Germany are working together to fill this vacuum. So this is not just an economic cooperation, it's also a strategic cooperation. Filling in a vacuum where there's a lot of competition. Now this is a space where there will be competition. And it is interesting to see Germany and India working together on these. I was also interested to see that in the statement from the ministries about Chancellor Scholz's visit, security defense was also highlighted as an important factor of cooperation. I think this would very much be talking about China as well as Russia and Ukraine between the two countries. And then, of course, I think we'll also talk about the mobility agreement and the need for young educated professionals that countries like Germany and in Western Europe have and are also looking to India as partners. So I think the cooperation has really become more broad-based, and there are new areas both Germany and India are trying to explore and work together on.
Absolutely. So the migration and mobility agreement is a new development in the Germany-India relationship. It has implications for movement of skilled professionals on both sides and for service sector trade. So this is also on the way up, and it's a positive development. But viewers, Dr. Garima Mohan already mentioned China, and the China factor is preponderant in the way Europe has been trying to reappraise its approach to Asia and to the Indo-Pacific, and Germany is no exception to that. Let's hear the German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock recently when she was in India talking about the China factor and how important it is, and how China looms large in the way Germany and Europe look at this region, and that of course has an implication for how they view India as a counterweight. Let's hear the German Foreign Minister and continue.
Yes, with a view to China. As our European friends, we pursue a tripartite approach that is enshrined in our coalition treaty as well. Almost to the day, we have been in office for a year, and we are pursuing a strategy with 3 parts. China is seen as a partner in global challenges, a competitor, and increasingly as a systemic rival as well. China has changed very much over the last few years, and I think the whole region can see this and feel this. So the exchange with actors from the region is very important to us, especially India as a direct neighbor. This is very important for us to have a good assessment of the challenges ahead. One of the newer points in our China strategy is the Indo-Pacific strategy. We will have more diversification in the Indo-Pacific area. There is huge potential for German and European companies. Until now, we've been focusing very much on China, but there are also ties with India and Japan, but not so many with many other neighboring countries. And when it comes to India, we have both highlighted that there is huge potential for further cooperation, both in terms of economic ties, but also when it comes to the security situation. In Germany, we have seen what it means when you become strongly dependent on one country, a country that does not share your values. So with a view to the political and security policy aspects and developments in the region, we will closely cooperate with our partners in the region.
Right. So viewers, Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister, calling a spade and saying that they see China as a systemic rival. Dr. Mohan, Europeans have juggled with this dilemma for a long time, and you've been studying it, how to approach the Indo-Pacific. There are a number of countries that have, including Germany, that have very strong economic ties and even dependence on the Chinese market over the years. And yet, the issues of human rights in Xinjiang, in Hong Kong, the issue with the Russia-Ukraine war and the way China has been siding so blatantly and openly with Russia, all these factors seem to have soured the mood in Europe about China, isn't it? And therein looks like you said, India looks so much more benign, non-threatening, and more welcome and trustworthy partner. So how would you see the evolution of German and European approach to Indo-Pacific, and with a specific focus on China?
Indeed, the mood in Europe has definitely soured on China. I think I would really like to stress for your viewers, because it is very apparent to me, sitting here in Berlin, how much the debates on China have changed in Europe. Often when I come to Delhi, people say that Europeans are not aware of the China challenge, they're not critical enough, they're still doing a lot of business with China. And I have to tell you that the debates on China here have changed remarkably. So it's not just Ukraine. It started before that. It started with the issue of investment screening, saying that Chinese companies are trying to get a leg up over European companies. There's no level playing field. On critical technologies like 5G, the role of companies like Huawei was being questioned. It was being seen as a national security threat. And then came the Ukraine conflict, where the role of China in tacitly supporting Russia, of course, has captured the attention of people. But also policymakers are drawing a very important lesson, as Minister Baerbock just pointed out. They realized that they made crucial mistakes by being so dependent on Russia for their energy needs. And they said that they're making a similar mistake by being so dependent on China when it comes to the economy and market and businesses. That's why the number one focus of these countries now is to diversify, particularly in terms of market access, and companies to go out of China, either go away from China or look for a China plus one model. Here, countries like India, Vietnam become really important partners. So a lot of countries, in addition to their China strategies, are creating Indo-Pacific strategies simultaneously, which means how to deal with China, but at the same time, how to look for alternate partners so that they take advantage of the dynamic and growing economies that we have in the Indo-Pacific, where India, of course, is very important. Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Mohan, yes, the diversification in economic terms makes sense, but about the defense role of the Europeans, including Germany, in the Indo-Pacific, there have been some joint exercises they have done. They've shown a presence by sending frigates and other things into the Indian Ocean and South China Seas. And there is the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy, which has got a strong security component as one of the pillars. So on that front, I mean, some people are skeptical because the Europeans are so far away geographically, and they cannot really project power in Indo-Pacific and be a big balancing factor the way US is, for example, So, but France, of course, does have a stronger military hand, but Germany and the rest of them seem to be more capable only in the economic sphere, or would you say there's also a role for them in defense and military cooperation and joint exercises and, show of force that can deter, Chinese expansionism in this region?
I think there is a limited role that Europe can play on hard security and hard defense. When it comes to, for example, frigates, joint exercises, yes, these are important symbolic gestures. How will they tip the scales in terms of power projection? That is still unclear. So I think there are two ways that Europe can help in managing security in the Indo-Pacific. One is indirectly. One is by playing a larger role in its own neighborhood. With the Russia challenge, Europeans have realized that they need to sort of wake up and deal with their own defense in conventional defense. By doing so, if Europe plays a more active role in protecting its own borders and neighborhood, that frees up the United States to engage more with the Indo-Pacific theater. So that is one part where Europe can play a role. Second is, of course, these joint exercises and particularly actors like France and the United Kingdom that have presence in the Indo-Pacific. But I think the third and most important role that Europe can play is not just in terms of economics, but also in terms of technology, infrastructure, dealing with non-traditional security challenges like climate change, which, to be frank, is an existential threat to island states in the Indian Ocean and smaller countries. And we've seen that often these countries have been ignored and they turn to countries like China, who then come along not just with economic investment, but also political influence, often setting up bases in these countries. So they're having partners who can invest in infrastructure, who can provide technological assets, who can provide all of these capacities. It is important because it's not just about economics, it has a clear implication on security as well. So when it comes to these challenges, the implications of economic investments and the impact of that on security of strategic projects, here Europe can be an important actor. And we have not really utilized this aspect of European presence, investment, capacities, money to deal with some of these challenges. So I think when we look at security more broadly, Europe can certainly play a role in the Indo-Pacific.
Yes, including the non-traditional arenas where, in fact, the EU is the biggest investor collectively in the Indo-Pacific region. People often don't realize that just if you add up all the individual countries' investment. So perhaps a more strategic and concerted and unified approach will help, although there are countries with whom China has been courting in Central and Eastern Europe and trying to form separate subgroups within the EU and divide the EU on this question and weaken their Indo-Pacific outlook. So last word, Dr. Mohan, Germany, Europe and India, a lot of positive developments, but like you said at the beginning, maybe unfulfilled potential also. So any one or two growth areas you think where we should focus on more to help shape this region? Chancellor Scholz has already said that he agrees with India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar that Europe should take the problems of other parts of the world more seriously, not just be navel-gazing only internally at its own problems. So it suggests that Europe wants to play a bigger role and is keen to contribute and help partners like India going forward.
Definitely. I think 2 points from my side to conclude this. One would be strengthening our economic partnership. The EU is the third most important trading partner for India, but India is only number 10 for the EU. I think before we can get to the free trade agreement, which is very complex, there are other smaller steps we can take to attract businesses, attract companies, attract investments in India. And this is a low-hanging fruit. It can be done easily and would immediately expand the potential of this partnership. Second, I think Europe and India really need to talk more about their own neighborhoods and their strategic challenges. After Ukraine, only did people in Europe wake up and realize that India has a very different relationship to Russia than they do. Indians have also been talking a lot about their relationship with China, and Europe has been a little late to understand that. So I think, given how closely Russia and China are cooperating, it is in the interest of European and Indian partners to talk about their respective strategic neighborhoods and the overlap in challenges they see on all sides.
Absolutely. So much to do for Germany, Europe, and India viewers, says Dr. Garima Mohan. And indeed, there is a lot of expectation on both sides that each should support the other in their crises and in their critical moments. And we hope that we can do more through convergence and mutual understanding and deeper strategic cooperation. So I want to thank Dr. Garima Mohan for sharing specialist insights about this topic. Thank you so much, and thank you for your work for promoting India, EU, and India-Germany cooperation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So viewers, Germany and India are upping the cooperation to higher levels, and it has implications because Germany is the de facto leader of Europe, and so the entire European Union usually follows the cues and the lead agenda set by Germany and France. Already France and India have got a very, very strong cooperative relationship, and now if Germany and India also get stronger, you can assume that the whole of the EU will turn in India's geopolitical and economic favor, and that's what we are looking for. So keep thinking about these shifting times and changing landscapes and how faraway countries can play important role in India's rise. I'll see you again next time. Until then, take care.